All right. It is about 1 minute before start time, so I'll let some people who are, you know, going to join us a little later on, give them some time. In the meantime, welcome to this AP Lang Fiveable stream. We'll be talking about composition multiple choice, and yeah, we'll get started in the next few minutes. That, by the way, should say 7 p.m. on my screen there. Should not say 8 p.m. That's a typo. All right, so I'm actually going to, while we wait for some later people to come on in, I'll talk about our weekly calendar this week. We have a bunch of stuff happening. In just an hour, Stats will be doing a stream. There will also be human geography, psychology, government, the sciences on Wednesday, and the history stuff on Thursday. Hello, a dog. I love that. Please go ahead and fill out that poll so I can get a grasp on what y'all are learning in class. I'll wait about 2 minutes before I start talking about the actual subject of today's stream. Guess I should also mention the upcoming streams too. So I will actually be with y'all this Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central for the next 3 weeks. So I will be here to talk to you about what a synthesis essay is. I'll get into a really good introduction paragraph for the synthesis essay. I'll talk to you about the body paragraphs, and then I'm actually going to hand it off to Kevin Steinhauser, a great AP English language teacher. He will be talking to you about the conclusion paragraph and just summing up the whole synthesis unit as a whole. Alrighty. I know it's President's Day. It's probably why not a lot of people are here today, but that's even better. So I guess before I start talking about Fiveable's social media, for the two of y'all that are here, thank you so much for being here right now. And with a smaller audience, I think it means I can cater to more personal feedback. And I think that's like the benefit of Fiveable over every other service or every other prep book. It's that you have this interaction between me and you. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the AP Lang exam anytime throughout the stream. And we'll even have like a mini question and answer session at the end. But we're going to be covering some multiple choice questions today. So it's really important that you are participating and you're interactive. Makes it more fun for me, and it makes it more fun for you too, because you're actually learning. Anyways, this slide shows the importance of following Fiveable social media. So their Twitter, their Instagram, and their YouTube all have great content. They sometimes give reminders for upcoming streams. Those are some really important things that you should definitely go follow. And then in terms of today's stream, we're first going to start off by talking about what is composition. Then we'll move into an overview of the exam multiple choice section. We'll talk about some practice questions and then end off with some resources that may be useful. I will be sending out some links in the chat for y'all to follow along. If you're on your phone, if you like click a link and go into like Safari, it doesn't mean that, like, you'll still hear my voice, so it's okay. Yeah, and if you're on your laptop, if you open a link in a new tab, obviously, you'll be able to switch between, because we'll be going through some excerpts and answering some questions. And yeah, so in terms of composition, what College Board says is that they're questions that make you think like a writer. So basically, you're not analyzing anything. You're not like, you're not doing rhetorical analysis. It's not like what is the purpose of this? Or why is this paragraph structured here? Things like that. Rather, you're going to be looking at the issues of like rhetorical situation, claims and evidence, reasoning and organization, and style from the perspective of a writer. So you're thinking, oh, if I were a writer, how would I answer these questions? And that's basically what composition is. So in terms of the entire multiple choice section, It is 45 questions, an hour long, and it's 45% of your exam. So you'll have 5 sets of questions and 23 to 25 reading questions, which we covered last week, and 20 to 22 writing questions, which we're covering today. So like the whole AP English language and composition title of the whole course, this stream is about composition. So I would say that the new refreshed multiple choice section, which is new for 2020, is very similar to the SAT, especially if you've done the reading and writing sections before, because you, well, I mean, there are obviously less questions and a little bit less time, I guess, because there's 52 reading, 44 writing on the SAT. And on the AP Lang exam, it's about 25 reading questions, 22 writing questions. So in today's stream, we'll be looking at composition. So on your exam, as I said earlier, you'll have 5 passages, and 3 of them are going to be centered on writing, or how you could make that person's writing better. So oftentimes you'll see like this is a draft, and then from there you'll improve that person's essay through a set of multiple choice questions. So this is on the left. This is a prompt released by College Board in their official course and exam description. And basically, it's an example of a prompt that could show up on your real test. So I'm actually going to send y'all this link here. And if you scroll over to page 126, that's where you'll see this passage. We'll have about 9 questions just from this passage alone. So I encourage you to click on it if you're on your computer. Even if you're on your phone, it should pull up in Safari and you can read through it. So there are 2 strategies that you can generally pursue with composition. The first is that you can just read and annotate. And I don't know if that's that great of a strategy, just because you're editing, not really analyzing. So what I like to do is go straight to the questions. And remember, you only have about 12 minutes per passage. So on the writing section, you really want to be making sure that you're spending not that much time compared to the analysis section, which is going to be evidently more difficult. And yeah, as you'll see here, each sentence in that passage is numbered. It's just demonstrating how like the questions will be like sentence 1, sentence 2, sentence 3, sentence 4. All right, so now we're gonna start the interactive part of the stream. So how it's going to work is I'm gonna show a question. I'll give y'all about, I'll say like 40 seconds to answer it. And then afterwards, I'll go through my thought process and how I got to that answer. So yeah, let's get started. Oh, lovely. Not page 126 then. I would say like scroll up 2 pages then. It's probably page like 123, 124. I'll confirm that. Give me a second. Thank you, Nikki, for letting me know. It's an error on my part. Okay. Cool. So we have our first question here. So I'll give you some time to read the passage. So this one will be about 65 to 70 seconds. So yeah, start now. I see what's wrong. It's page 126 of the PDF, or page in the bottom right corner, it would be page 119. So yeah, let's just follow along, read through the passage, and then answer number 9. All right, so leave your answer in the chat on what you think is the right answer to number 9. Do not be afraid to be wrong, because that's what I'm here for. I'll give you about 10 more seconds. All right, so the correct answer in this case is B. And the reason why it's B is because if you read the sentence that's right there, sentence 1, after an unsuccessful search, NASA determined that instead of following a trajectory that would allow the orbiter to enter orbit around Mars, it came too close to the planet, yada, 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 right? So the reason why B is the better answer than what I'm saying is D is because it needs to transition really, really effectively into A, the first sentence, and B, it needs to talk about the topic of the paragraph, right? So in this case, they say the culprit was a discrepancy in the software. It's basically saying, oh, the imperial unit is really bad. Like the imperial unit is an example in which the engineers failed, yada, 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 right? So answer choice D that talks about the deep space network of radio antenna, that doesn't really have anything to do with anything that's in this first paragraph. So it doesn't do that second part of the question. It doesn't provide the most effective introduction to the topic of the paragraph. And while it does to some extent capture the audience's interest, the only answer choice that does both is B, because B transitions very smoothly from this sentence into sentence 1, because NASA officials were aghast when it disappeared. After they tried to search it, NASA determined that instead of following a trajectory, it came too close to the planet. So I think option choice B is better than option choice D because it captures the interest and effectively transitions into the whole argument that the orbiter mission failed, and that's because United States uses like different units and stuff like that. If that doesn't make sense, if my explanation like is confusing, feel free to ask clarification questions, because once again, we're all learning here. All 7 of y'all in the audience right now and me, I want to make this like almost like personalized learning. So like I'm not here just to like lecture on and on and on. So yeah. All right. We'll do number 10 now. And actually, I'm going to go with what College Board says, and I'm going to give you 75 seconds per question. So your 75 seconds starts now. And be sure to read what the question is asking for very carefully. So it wants a transition from the introductory paragraph to the main idea of the passage. And that's time. So let's look at, before I even get to the answer, let's look at what it's asking for. The writer wants an effective transition from the introductory paragraph to the main idea of the passage. So writing, I mean, I guess you could read the entire passage. I just think you're wasting a little bit of time. But I think you can skim very quickly and realize that paragraph 2, paragraph 3, and paragraph 4 are all talking about the failures of the, not the failures, but how, like basically the metric system is so much better than the imperial system, right? So we look through all of these answers. None of these other ones mention imperial versus metric, except for the original sentence. So that's why answer choice A best achieves this purpose, because answer choice B, for instance, talks about the lack of data lining up, right? But the rest of the passage is talking about how metric is like Good. Same with answer choice D. Like the software and the data don't really matter when the rest of the essay is talking about metric versus imperial. So that's why answer choice A is the best answer. All right. And now we'll do question 11. Also, like if you think like my explanations or the logic that I'm kind of going through doesn't make sense either, feel free to question me because the stream is supposed to last about 45 to 50 minutes or so, but we can make it as long as you need, as long as I'm helping you personalize that feedback, because that's what's important for me at least. All right, let's do number 11. Same deal, 75 seconds on the clock. Also, it's like on average 75 seconds. So as y'all seen here, this one did not take that long. It only took like a minute and 5 for most of y'all. So yeah, the correct answer is C. And the reason why is, like I kind of spoiled earlier, the entire thing is about the metric system. So answer choice C is the best one, not A or B or D or D. All right, same thing. Next question. All right, good job. The answer choice is D. So the way I would approach this question is I would look at sentence 4. Most of the world uses the metric system, yada, yada, yada. And then sentence 5, where it talks about the imperial measurement. So the only one that creates a comparison is D, by contrast. So yes, answer choice D is the best answer. I know these questions feel a little bit easy, but that is the point. So remember, you'll have 22 questions out of 45 questions on the AP Lang multiple choice exam. And it's so important that you get like 20 of those 22 or 18 of those 22 right, because you don't want to be making silly mistakes on the composition section, because rhetorical analysis is just, in my opinion, a little bit more difficult because you have to come up with more analysis. You have to think of a purpose, et cetera, et cetera. This stuff is like, as long as you know your English grammar rules, you're good. Or as long as you know how things flow, I think it's sort of self-explanatory. All right, let's move on to the next one. And by the way, we have about 20-ish questions or so planned today. So this will be like taking a small section. It'll be taking like a fake composition section on the exam. Right. Next question. All right, great job. So if you read what it's asking for, they want you to provide a convincing explanation for why switching to the metric system would benefit U.S. industries. This, like, honestly, the writing section of the multiple choice or the composition section, whatever you call it, is really a reading section because you have to know what they're asking for you to do. So in this case, benefiting U.S. industries, answer choice B, C, and E don't give reasons why industry would benefit. Only D does. So yes, answer choice D is correct. Great job, guys. All right, let's see number 14. And also, if you've noticed, sometimes there are 3 wrong answers and 1 very obvious right, or 4 wrong answers, 1 right answer. So that's something you should look out for too. All right. All right, good job. So this one actually tripped me up because as I've been like working on these questions while I've been doing this with y'all, and the first time I read it, I thought it was talking about like a U.S. conversion to metric units would be like this. So an implementation would look like this. So that's why I initially thought, oh, it's probably after sentence 9. But if you read it very, very carefully, and on these questions, it's like a puzzle. You are literally just putting that sentence before or after wherever it tells you, right? So before sentence 6, that wouldn't make any sense because you never start off an intro paragraph or a paragraph with "this means," right? So you can cross off answer A off the bat. And then with answer B, the US is one of 3 countries that hasn't fully adopted the metric system. This means that the US must convert to metric units when it's dealing with the rest of the world. And then it says not only are conversion errors, so if you put it right between sentences 6 and 7, it just makes the most amount of sense. And that's why answer B is the best answer, because that's the best place that it could be placed, because it helps transition from sentence 6 to sentence 7. Hope that makes sense. All right, I'll move on to the next one. Excuse me. Okay, first of all, before I even get to this question, this is the first time that I've had a 100% participation rate on my stream. So even though WAP and APUSH and Euro have like huge audience sizes of like 20 to 30 people, the fact that every single person watching is participating and answering questions, I love y'all. And also 100% of y'all got it right. Answer C is the best answer because it's the only piece of evidence that doesn't make sense in the context of that poem, or sorry, paragraph. So yeah, it is answer choice C, because A, B, D, and E all show instances in which the metric system would have prevented that from happening. And in terms of answer E and D, it supports the like almost every sentence in there. So yeah, good job. All right, we'll move on. There are two more questions from this passage. All right, that's your minute 15. And this is kind of a difficult question, which is why it took y'all a little bit longer. So, in the fourth paragraph, the writer wants to expand on the concession that converting to the metric system may seem difficult. So what I would do is I would read the fourth paragraph where it talks about converting to metric may seem difficult, but the US already uses it more than you think. And then talks about how it's time for the US to make the leap to metric and everything else it measures. So which of the following claims best helps you achieve the purpose that converting to the metric system may seem difficult? So let's go through all the answers. Answer choice A says that the imperial system functions pretty well. That's not a concession. And also, this is where vocabulary comes into play too. So if you pay attention to whenever your teacher's talking about the argument essay, a concession is where you basically admit that you admit a flaw in your argument and then kind of go against it, right? So answer choice A is not conceding anything. So it's not A. Answer choice B says that many attempts to make the US adopt the metric system have already been made, right? So I guess that sort of implicitly demonstrates that converting to the metric system has been difficult. But remember, it says in the question that they want to expand on the concession that converting it may seem difficult. So it's a perception argument, right? It's saying, oh, it is perceived like you have to think like, sorry, I've said the word like 6 times. You have to think that converting to the metric system may seem difficult. And B doesn't do that. All it shows is that it failed in the past. So it doesn't really achieve that purpose. Answer choice C and D do not concede. And then answer choice E, which is probably the other answer you would pick from, says that it would be costly and confusing to manage that task of converting everything from road signs to measuring cups. And so answer choice E is the best answer because it directly answers what it's asking for in the question. A perception. Converting to the metric system may seem difficult. And answer choice E says it would be costly, right? So it's saying the perception is that the metric system conversion would be difficult. I hope that makes sense as to why E is the better answer than B. I also don't know how to pronounce your, do I just call you a dog? Or is it like a dog? I don't know. But yeah, I hope that makes sense. And once again, if you have any questions about any of my explanations, feel free to let me know. A dag. Okay, cool. A dog. All right, we'll move on to the last question of this passage, number 17. You're good. And yeah, I'll start the timer. Good luck. Okay, that's your minute and 15. So actually what I'm going to ask y'all is in the chat, tell me what you think the word rebut means right here. Rebut the claim. What does that mean? Oops, my mouse is not on the screen. That. Yeah, refute, to go against, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So what the question, first of all, great job for knowing that vocabulary word because I definitely did not know that in like 11th grade. Like I was like rebut, never, like I used it in like debate once or twice, but I never heard it used like as a verb. So yeah, it means to like argue against the claim. So note that you are picking an answer that goes against the fact that converting to the metric system might be difficult, right? So we'll do process of elimination. Answer choice A, like just because people want to adopt the system doesn't mean that it's not difficult. It's not answer choice A. Answer choice B does not rebut the claim. So it's not B. And it's also not C because that concedes that converting to the metric system would be difficult, right? D tells you the successful adoption, so that's a potential answer. But answer choice E that says estimating the cost of converting signs at $334 million, that number is so large that I would argue that that's more of an example that it concedes that converting to the metric system would be pretty expensive. So it wouldn't be answer choice E, it would be answer choice D because that's the only one that goes against the claim that converting to the metric system would be difficult. And yeah, reading carefully is so important. And this is like a question that like shouldn't be that difficult because like as y'all read, like the prompt was all, or the essay, excuse me, or the excerpt, that's what it's called. It wasn't too incredibly difficult, but you just have to make sure you're reading every question so carefully. And I get it, a dog. It asked for further evidence that it was difficult. Yeah, because if you kind of like skim through it, I didn't see rebut the claim at first either, and I was like, oh, converting to the metric system might be difficult. But yeah, so that is actually the only official question set that has ever been released by the College Board because this is the first year that they're adding composition on the AP Lang exam. Y'all have it so easy. Like we had to do 50 rhetorical analysis questions in 55 minutes. Now y'all get to do 45 questions in 60 minutes. And not only do you not have to do 55 questions, you only have to do like 20 real rhetorical analysis questions. So y'all got it good. Like a 5 should be very great to get this year. But the problem with that is that there aren't many questions available. Like even like people who create practice tests like Princeton Review and all of them, we don't know if they're aligned with the actual College Board because, you know, we've never actually seen a composition or a writing set of questions on the AP Lang exam. So my advice to you is that you should use questions that have already been released by the founder, which is College Board. And as I mentioned earlier, the SAT writing section is pretty much this stuff, revision and grammar, or revising and editing. But the key thing is you don't want to be doing like grammar questions because as y'all saw from the last set of 8 questions, none of them were like where your commas go, where your semicolons go, colons. No, it's like revising as a writer. So you really want to do revision questions. And at the end of the stream, which will be in about like 10 minutes or so, we just have 8 slides left in today's presentation. I'll give y'all some links for SAT practice that are pretty great. So this comes from the May 2019 SAT. And yeah, we'll get started with this. So read the prompt and then read the question. I'll give y'all about like 90 seconds on this one. Yeah, so on the SAT, yeah, the question, sorry if that was confusing. Where that number 5 is corresponds to the question. Fun fact. All right. All right, that's time's up. So yeah, the correct, well, actually, let's look at the question first before I tell you the correct answer. So as you can see here, it talks about the Alvarez hypothesis. And it mentions all this information about iridium and evidence of an asteroid strike and stuff like that. So then it's saying these sudden environmental shifts would have rapidly driven many species to extinction, a conclusion supported by sharp declines in the levels of plankton and pollen in the fossil record, right? So let's think. Let's say we cut that out, right? And you just entered it as these sudden environmental shifts would have rapidly driven many species to extinction, period. Would the essay as a whole be better off? The answer is no. It would, I would say that like makes the conclusion of the Alvarez hypothesis even more stronger. So we've kind of come to that conclusion that it's either A or B, and it can't be C or D, right? And also, if you read the explanations, they don't really make sense. So, like C says delete because it describes effects of the asteroid impact that have already been discussed. Has it already been discussed about? Sorry, this part is blocking the way. Let's see if I can do that. No, they don't mention plankton, and also it like discussing extinctions of life forms other than dinosaurs also doesn't make sense. So then we know that it's kept, right? And it's not an objection. So then, therefore, answer choice B is the best answer. Also, I was planning on linking to this, like these passages and stuff. So I can do that if you want. So give me a second. I'm gonna get the page number for you in like 2 seconds. Sorry, I like planned to do this earlier, but it just fell through on accident. And I'm going to answer your question, Nikki, in like 10 seconds. So just give me a bit. All right, so this is page 18 of the PDF. Or actually, we're now moving on to question 8, I think, or question 11. So we're now on page 20. That's where you can follow along. We just did that one. 18. Yeah. Oh, sorry. It's actually page 22. All right. So box 18 is right over here. And I'll start the timer. I'm going to give a little bit more time and then give some feedback. And I guess I'll quickly answer Nikki's question right now. So Nikki asks, are ACT questions also okay to practice for the AP exam, even though they're not from College Board? I would say yes. And make sure that you're taking questions out of the ACT English section, and specifically the question types that are like, which of the, I would say like, at this point, the writer's considering adding this, or the writer wants to divide this paragraph into two, or given that all the choices are accurate, which of these most, like, you don't want the ones that are like, no change, comma rules, past tense, present tense, that kind of stuff. So yes, I think they're fine. And if you're doing prep for the ACT already, I don't think it hurts, because I think a lot of the composition section is common sense. It's just saying it out loud or putting it in there, and reading carefully. So yeah, I think the ACT questions are fine. I just think, in my personal opinion, doing some SAT questions like on Khan Academy or through like official SAT tests like we're doing right now is really helpful, because they might just reuse one of the passages from the SAT on the actual exam. So I don't think it hurts, but I also think SAT prep is probably good too. Hope that answered your question. All right, and that's given sufficient time for y'all to answer B. Is a consensus there. So if we read it in context, or if we read the last paragraph, it talks about how Macpherson published 2 epic poems. He claimed that the poems had been written by Ossian. And so then it's saying, how do we transition from that paragraph to this paragraph? And this one talks about the original manuscripts, and then there's an accusation of fraud. And so yes, answer choice B is the best answer, because it transitions into the controversy. Good job, guys. All right, let's do this one now. Number 20. Give you a minute 30 for this one as well. All right, so if we read this paragraph in context, you'll see that it talks about Macpherson wrote the Ossian text, and then today it is believed that Macpherson created the Ossian text by combining poetry and stories he'd heard on his travels. So this stuff, yeah, it blurs the focus of the paragraph. Like if you put this physically in where that number 20 is, it just doesn't make sense. So yeah, it blurs the focus and introduces extraneous information. Extraneous just means like unnecessary information. So yeah, good job, guys. Right. This is our last question. So I'll give you a minute 15 to wrap it up. If it's blurry for everyone, I can refresh it, but it's the last question anyways. So uh, we'll just see if y'all can get this in the time being. All right, I'll give y'all about another 10 seconds or so. All right, the answer is B. And the reason why is because the next sentence talks about different countries like Brazil and Japan. And the previous sentence talks about the existing network of offices. So the existing network of offices would exist worldwide in 50 countries or more. And then it would transition pretty effectively. If it says such systems already exist in 50 countries, then it goes into one country and another country. So yes, answer choice B is the best answer among A, B, C, and D because A doesn't talk about other countries, C and D don't either. Alrighty, so there are a lot of resources that are available for the composition section, in my opinion, because many of y'all are juniors, or most of y'all are juniors, I'm assuming. So you're studying for standardized tests like the SAT or ACT. So composition questions have pretty much already been written for the SAT, so I would encourage you to use them. Here are some clickable links that you might want to bookmark on your computer or save. And Khan Academy, if you're not already aware of it, gives you some feedback on SAT questions. Although Fiveable will probably be doing some stuff maybe for the SAT in the future. Like I did a stream back in June, so we'll see about that. And also, if you're doing ACT preparation, I guess I'm also going to give you all some ACT stuff. Just remember that for the SAT, you're doing the reading section, or sorry, SAT, you're doing the writing section, and on the ACT, you're doing the English section in preparation for the composition multiple choice. So I'll write that out again. SAT writing section. All right, so we're going to end the stream like I always do, and that will be a 5-minute period of Q&A. So from now until 7:55 Eastern, 6:55 Central, I'll leave it. Actually, it'll be like, it depends on how many questions there are, because I don't want to limit y'all if you have more than 5 minutes worth of questions, but it usually doesn't go that long. So feel free to leave any questions in the chat about AP English language, anything about it, the SAT or ACT, AP courses, Fiveable as a whole, things like that. I would be happy to answer them. So yeah. Oh, and one more thing. I might be hosting a stream in April where we're going to go over all of this again right before the AP exam, because we have a bunch of like wrap-up sessions where we're doing um, rhetorical analysis, multiple choice, composition, multiple choice. So I might be hosting that again in April. So if you have any feedback on today's format, if you would prefer something like a Nearpod, or like where like you're submitting answers manually and I review them out loud, or if we were to do like, I don't know, if you have like a creative format in mind, something that you think would work better with Crowdcast or with some other platform, please leave your feedback in the comments because I really want to help y'all, and it's more fun for me if y'all are interacting. So like the more interaction, the more learning you do, better for me. All right. So yeah, that's one thing that I'm gonna ask for y'all. Or if y'all thought today's format was fine and it worked well, and you just hope that we can do more questions, that works too. All right. A dog asks, "Have you taken SAT subject tests? What is your advice on them?" Yes, I have taken 4 SAT subject tests. I submitted 3 of them to a few colleges. Remember that the only school that really requires 3 SAT subject tests is Georgetown. The other schools, I think most, if not all of them, require or recommend just 2, unless you're like a homeschool student applying to a few schools. Like I think Northwestern requires 3. I would always pick tests that are in your like set of strengths. So for instance, like I came off of pre-cal and calculus last year knowing like a decent amount. So I took math 2. And then I'm like a history geek. So I took US history and world history. And those worked out. The test that I did not submit to colleges was literature because I just didn't do enough preparation. And there's literally like 2 books out there about SAT literature. It's a little bit more difficult. But my advice for you is you need to take at least 4 practice, no, like 2 to at least minimum 2 practice tests in your subject. And I would encourage you to actually sign up for either since you said you're taking the May SAT, I would say take the June SAT subject test administration. So after you finish studying for AP exams, start studying for SAT subject tests. And then that way over the summer, you don't have to study because I failed on that front. I didn't study enough in June, so then I had to take it in August. So the summer before my senior year, I was studying for subject tests, and that was the worst. So make sure you're doing that preparation very early on. If you have any questions about like the tests themselves, like what was math 2 like, what was US history like, etc., like you can ask me then too. I'd be happy to answer them. How well do we have to do in our AP Lang essays in order to get a 5? That's a good question. Well, here's the thing. This year there is a completely new scoring system because last year all of our essays were out of 9. And you had to get a 6 or above out of 9 in order to get a 5, pretty much. Like 6s on all of your essays and miss no more than 10 multiple choice. I would say that now that they've included composition, the curve is probably going to be a little bit harder. So I would say that at most you could probably miss like 5 to 7 multiple choice questions, maybe 10. I don't know about that. And in terms of your essays, I mean, I think the whole 141 of, because I'm in AP Literature, which is the class you take after language, and AP Lit has the exact same scoring system, and it's been like an interesting change at least because I think your thesis point is given. I think like you should not be struggling to get 2 evidence and commentary points, 3 evidence and commentary points, honestly. So that's 4 points off the bat. So I would say like getting those basic 4 points is kind of a given. So you'd probably get a 4 with a 4, like if you missed like 10 questions on your multiple choice and got 4s on all 3 of your essays, yeah, then I would say you probably end up with a 3 or a 4, depending on your multiple choice section. But I think in order to get to that 5, you probably need 5s and 6s on your essays. Yeah, I would say so. So maybe if you miss a sophistication point on the synthesis essay, or you miss the fourth evidence and commentary point on the argument essay, I would say shoot for a 5 to a 6 on AP Lang essays. And your teachers probably grade a little harder than College Board, so if you're getting like 4s in class, that's okay. And speaking of AP Lang essays, next Monday, seven days from today at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, I will be hosting a synthesis overview stream. It shouldn't be that long, like 30 to 35 minutes, where I introduce the synthesis essay. I feel like most AP Lang teachers usually start off with rhetorical analysis, they move into argument, and then do synthesis. Or some people do rhetorical analysis, synthesis, argument. I don't know. I don't know if y'all already covered it in class, but I guess I can go into more depth about that. They do more work in regular English than AP in my school. Oh, that's really funny. Not at my school. AP English language was by far the 3rd hardest class I've ever taken in high school, just because I have a really intense teacher. But like, I would say like a solid 40 to 50% of her students get 5s. So I guess it was worth it in the end. But we did a lot of literary analysis. We did a TED Talk. We wrote research papers. We wrote like a satire essay. We wrote like so much. Oh, Nikki. Okay. We just finished argument. Now we're starting synthesis. That's great to hear. I'm glad to hear that. So we're kind of in line with where y'all are at. I appreciate you letting me know. Yeah, and so the timeline is that February through March, we're gonna just cover core stuff. So we have some multiple choice, some essays, some multiple choice, some essays, and then starting in, I think, late March, early April, we start doing some stuff right before the AP exam, some reviews, and yeah, that's pretty much it. We had the whole quarter to do one PBL each. Is that something project-based learning? Is that what it is? Interesting. Yeah, my teacher gave like 2-week deadlines for projects. It's crazy. Not fun. That's interesting. And yeah, I think different teachers choose, like, we read like 7 books in AP English language. I know some AP Lang teachers who don't give them books to read. So it just depends on your class, I would say. But I think at the end of the day, the AP Lang exam tests whether or not you are a good writer and whether you're a good reader. And I think you'll be able to achieve that. So I'll leave the next few minutes or so for any other open questions, even about like college applications, senior year, stress before AP exams. Because I was taking 4 AP exams my junior year, so that was a lot of stress. So I get it. There's a lot. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. All right, if there are no further questions, you can leave them anyways when I end the stream, and I'll try and answer them via typing because I type pretty fast. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Remember that we have great social media that you should go follow at Fiveable. We have upcoming streams for almost all different AP subjects, from bio to APUSH to government to statistics. Definitely go check those out. And we have synthesis stuff for the next 4 weeks. And for the next 3 weeks, you will be with me, Brandon Wu. And hopefully I'm not as congested and sneezing as I was today. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me here at Fiveable with our live review today of composition multiple choice. And I hope to see you in the coming weeks. Bye-bye.